Today, we're going deep on a topic that I think is going to resonate with a lot of you out there. We're talking knee pain, and we're looking specifically at Genesis Blend CBD oil as a potential source of relief. We've gotten, I think, a ton of questions about this.
Yeah, definitely seems to be a huge interest in natural pain relief these days, and CBD oil is getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess for this deep dive, like what's the goal here? Are we going to be like, slathering on CBD oil and hitting the dance floor by the end of this?
Well, maybe not quite that,
Right.
but we'll definitely be unpacking what exactly Genesis Blend is, the science behind it, and how it might be able to help with different types of knee pain.
All right, that sounds good. So let's get started then with the basics. I mean, knee pain, this is not exactly a rare experience, right? I feel
Oh,
like I've heard everyone from, weekend warriors complaining about their joints to like my grandma blaming the weather for her, arthritis flare-ups. It's everywhere.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the sources that you sent me really cover a wide range of causes for knee pain, from like osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis to injuries and even post-surgical pain. So yeah, tons of things that can cause it.
Okay, so with so many potential causes, like where does CBD oil fit in here? Is this like a cure-all?
What? Not exactly.
Yeah.
It's more about trying to address like the underlying inflammation and the pain pathways. One of the articles we have here, though, mentions that Genesis Blend specifically might be more effective for this because they focus on something called the entourage effect.
The entourage effect. Okay, that sounds a little Hollywood for me. Is this where like CBD oil rolls out the red carpet for, pain relief?
Maybe a little bit more scientific than that, but I
Right.
like your thinking. So the idea with the entourage effect is that full spectrum CBD oils like Genesis Blend contain a variety of different cannabinoids and terpenes,
Hmm.
not just CBD in isolation. And these compounds, they might actually work together synergistically to boost the overall therapeutic benefit you get.
Okay, so it's not just about like the star of the show, the CBD, it's about the supporting cast too.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And actually, one of the studies that you sent over highlighted that Genesis Blend specific blend might be particularly good for inflammation.
Interesting. So how does this, this whole entourage, how does it actually work? It's magic. What's going on there?
So it all boils down to the body's endocannabinoid system, the ECS. And this system is really crucial for regulating a bunch of functions in your body, including like pain, inflammation, even mood.
Okay. So the ECS is kind of like the body's, I don't know, like the control panel for all these functions.
Yeah.
And CBD is somehow like interacting with that.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. The research that we have is suggesting that CBD, along with other cannabinoids, can interact with receptors in the ECS, especially the TRPV1 receptor, which is really involved in how we feel pain.
Okay. And so what about Genesis Blend specifically? Does it interact with the ECS any differently than other CBD oils?
Well, that's where the entourage effect really comes into play. So all those different cannabinoids and terpenes in Genesis Blend, they might actually be working together to modulate the ECS in a more comprehensive way
Okay.
and potentially leading to more benefit.
I have to say, when I first heard about, CBD for knee pain, I was a little skeptical, I'll be honest.
Sure.
But the more I learn about, the science and like how it works, the more intrigued I get.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that initial skepticism. I think it's important to approach new things with a critical eye for
Yeah.
sure. But the research on CBD and how it interacts with the ECS is definitely growing very quickly. So it's definitely a field worth paying attention to.
Yeah. Genesis Blend seems really committed to quality and transparency. Like they're going above and beyond a lot of what, I've seen from other companies. So it's not just any old hemp plant.
Right.
There's a terroir, there's an origin story here, like a fine wine.
Exactly. And then they use extraction method,
Hmm.
which is considered to be one of the cleanest and most efficient ways to get the CBD out while still preserving all of the good stuff.
That's good to hear. I mean, I'm all for natural solutions, but, quality and purity are like so important,
Absolutely.
especially when it's something you're putting in your body.
Definitely. I think it's really important to be an informed consumer and choose products that, align with your values.
For sure. Okay, so we've covered, the basics of knee pain. We've talked about this ECS and, what makes Genesis Blend kind of stand out.
Right.
But let's get down to, brass tacks here. How might this oil actually help with knee pain?
Okay, that's a great question. That leads us right into the research.
All right, let's do it.
We'll jump into that. Okay, so let's get into how Genesis Blend might be able to help with different types of knee pain. And I think a good place to start is osteoarthritis.
Okay, yeah, osteoarthritis. So that's the one where the cartilage wears down over time, right?
Exactly.
And it seems like inflammation is a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the research that we have here suggests that Genesis blend could be especially useful for that.
But I think I saw in some of the stuff we were looking at that, some people were saying that like topical application might not be as effective for like really deep pain like you get with osteoarthritis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it really highlights how important it is to understand the different ways that you can use CBD. So while topical application can be great for like surface level pain relief,
Right.
for something like osteoarthritis, where the pain is often deeper in the joint, um, you might want to think about combining topical and sublingual application.
Okay, so like rubbing it on and taking a few drops under your tongue.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the sublingual method allows it to get into your bloodstream faster. So it could provide more like widespread relief, while the topical application is really targeting that specific area.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about, other types of knee pain? Like what about rheumatoid arthritis?
Yeah,
That's an autoimmune condition, right?
exactly. So rheumatoid arthritis is where the immune system is actually attacking the joints, which leads to, chronic inflammation and pain. There was a really interesting case study actually in one of the articles you shared about a woman with rheumatoid arthritis who found a lot of relief using Genesis blend.
Oh, really? What happened there?
So she'd been dealing with pain and stiffness for years,
Hmm.
and traditional medications, they weren't really working for her. But she started using Genesis blend, both topically and sublingually. And within a few weeks, she was noticing a pretty significant reduction in her pain, and her mobility even started to improve.
Hmm, interesting. That's pretty promising, though I guess it does make me wonder, is there any research that's like directly comparing Genesis blend to other CBD oils specifically for rheumatoid arthritis?
That's a great question. And while there is more and more research coming out all the time on CBD for pain management, um, I think more studies specifically comparing different brands and different formulations would be really helpful.
Right. Okay. So more research is needed, but these, anecdotal experiences at least are pretty interesting. What about for folks who are recovering from like knee surgery? Could Genesis blend help with that post-operative pain?
Yeah, that's actually another area where CBD is showing some real potential. So the anti-inflammatory properties of CBD might be able to help manage that pain and swelling that you get after surgery. And actually, there's a study mentioned in one of the articles you sent me that found that CBD was actually effective at reducing both pain levels and opioid use after knee replacement surgery.
Wow. Reducing opioid use, that's huge, especially with, everything that's going on with the opioid crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding natural alternatives for pain management is super important right now, and CBD could be a really valuable tool for that.
For sure. So we've talked about osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, post-surgical pain. Are there any other types of knee pain that Genesis blend might be helpful for?
Yeah, the articles that we've been looking at, they also mention the potential for chronic pain conditions, including those that are related to like old injuries or even nerve damage.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that CBD interacts with that TRPV1 receptor, which is involved in how we feel pain. Could that be how it helps with these types of chronic pain?
Yeah, that's one possible way it works. So, by interacting with the TRPV1 receptor, CBD might be able to actually modulate those pain signals and essentially reduce how much pain you're feeling.
Wow. So it's not just about reducing inflammation then. It's potentially even influencing how the brain processes the pain signals.
Exactly. It's kind of a multi-pronged approach to dealing with pain.
That's really interesting. One thing that really stood out to me in the articles was just this emphasis on a holistic approach to knee pain. It wasn't just like, slap on some CBD oil and you're good to go. It was about making lifestyle changes too, right?
Absolutely. CBD is not a magic bullet. It's really just one piece of the puzzle. So
Mm.
things like getting regular exercise, maintaining a healthy weight, physical therapy, all of that can be really helpful for supporting your joint health.
And what about diet? Does that play a role in knee pain as well?
Oh yeah, diet is huge. It's often overlooked, but it's incredibly important. I think one of the articles even mentioned that following an anti-inflammatory diet, so something rich in fruits and vegetables, omega-3 fatty acids, that can actually help reduce inflammation throughout your whole body, including your joints.
So it's really about like, creating a supportive environment for your body to heal and thrive.
Exactly. It's about empowering yourself to take control of your health. and, exploring all the different options that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been really helpful. I feel like we've gotten a good overview of how Genesis Blend might be able to help with all sorts of knee pain. But I guess, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, safety and potential side effects. What do we know about that?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and thankfully, the research suggests that CBD is generally considered to be pretty safe and well tolerated.
Okay. You said safe, but what about, potential long-term effects? I think some of the articles had, kind of conflicting views on that.
Right, and that's definitely a valid concern. We haven't had any really long-term studies on the effects of CBD yet, but the research that we do have so far hasn't shown any major red flags. However, it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement, especially if you're on other medications.
Right, right. Okay, so it's all about being informed and having that open communication with your healthcare provider. What about dosage? Is there like a standard recommendation for how to use Genesis Blend?
Unfortunately, there isn't really a one-size-fits-all dosage for CBD. It often depends on a lot of factors like your body weight, how severe your pain is, and just individual sensitivity.
So how do you figure out what the right dose is for you?
Usually the advice is to start low and go slow. Genesis Blend does come with a recommended dosage guide, but it's always best to start with a smaller dose and then gradually increase it until you find what works best for you personally.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that Genesis Blend is a full spectrum CBD oil, so that means it contains, other cannabinoids and terpenes, not just CBD.
Yeah.
Does that affect the dosage at all?
Yeah, it can. The presence of those other cannabinoids and terpenes can actually enhance the effects of CBD, so you might find that a lower dose is actually more effective for you.
So it's really about finding that sweet spot where you're getting the benefits that you want without any, unwanted side effects.
Exactly. And it's really important to be patient too.
Uh,
CBD, it's not a quick fix. It can take some time for its effects to really build up in your body.
Right. Okay, so we've covered safety, dosage, the importance of, taking a holistic approach. Anything else we should be thinking about before we wrap up our deep dive?
Well, I think there's one more thing that we should touch on, something that's often overlooked, but it can really have a huge impact on how well CBD oil works. And that's the quality and purity of the oil itself.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
Right. So we were talking about the quality of the CBD oil, and I think that's super important. You could be doing everything right, like picking the right kind of CBD, using it the right way, making all those good lifestyle changes. But if the quality of that oil isn't there, well, you might not get the full benefit.
So, what should people be looking for when they're choosing a CBD oil? Like, what makes Genesis Blend different in terms of quality?
Well, I think transparency is super important. So Genesis Blend, they actually provide what's called a certificate of analysis, a COA, for every batch of oil. And that's from a third-party lab, so it shows exactly what's in the oil, how much of each cannabinoid is there. And it also confirms that it's free of all the bad stuff you don't want, like pesticides, heavy metals, or any leftover solvents from the extraction process.
Oh, that makes sense. Nobody wants to be rubbing heavy metals on their knees, right?
Right.
It's kind of like checking the ingredient list on food. You want to know what you're putting into your body.
Exactly. And Genesis Blend actually goes a step further. They use organic hemp, and it's grown without any harmful pesticides or herbicides. It's a more sustainable way of doing things, and it's also better for the environment.
It's amazing how, those choices, like where they get the hemp from, how they extract it, all of that stuff really affects what you end up with in that bottle.
Yeah, it really does. And they even use amber glass bottles for their oil to protect it from breaking down in light. So they really are thinking about every step of the process, making sure the oil stays good and effective.
Wow, okay, they've really thought of everything. That definitely makes me feel better knowing that they put so much care into making Genesis Blend.
Right. And it's not just about the company and how they do things, but remember, Genesis Blend is a full spectrum oil, which means it still has all those beneficial cannabinoids and terpenes in it. That's what contributes to that entourage effect we were talking about earlier.
Right, the entourage effect. So while quality is obviously important for any CBD oil, it seems like it's especially crucial for full spectrum oils because you really want to make sure you're getting all the good stuff.
Exactly. It's kind of like the difference between like processed food and a whole food,
I like that.
The whole food, in this case, the full spectrum oil, it keeps all that natural complexity, all those compounds working together.
I love that analogy. So, as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Genesis Blend and how it might help with knee pain, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners out there?
Well, I think knee pain is a really complicated issue, and there's not going to be one solution that works for everyone. But I do think Genesis Blend offers a really promising natural approach, especially for those people who are looking for relief from inflammation and pain.
And it's not just about the oil itself, right? It's about understanding the science, doing your research, and really taking a holistic approach to knee health.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to your doctor, try out different ways of using the oil, and don't forget about all those lifestyle changes we talked about, like exercise and diet. It's all about taking control of your own health.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for walking us through all of this. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have too.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And remember, everyone, knowledge is power, right? The more we understand about our bodies and all the options that are out there, the better decisions we can make for our health.
So true. And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. If this deep dive has made you curious about natural pain relief, we encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and of course, talk to your healthcare providers to figure out what's best for you. Until next time, keep diving deep.